Welcome to The Explainer. In just one chaotic week, the capture of a sitting president sent these massive ripples across the globe, hitting everything from the oil markets to the Arctic and then right back to the streets of America. So let's break down how a single event spiraled into a week of absolute global chaos. I mean, look at how quickly things escalated. A single event on January 3rd kicked off this insane chain reaction that would completely define the week. What's staggering is just the sheer velocity of it all. You go from a presidential capture to military threats and a fatal shooting on U.S. soil. The events just kept piling on, creating this real, palpable sense of global instability. So where did this all kick off? Well, it all started with one single event, something that was truly unprecedented. On January 3rd, the world wakes up to the news that the U.S. military had captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. And right there, a dramatic and totally unpredictable stage was set for the week to come. And get this, just 3 days after being captured, Maduro and his wife are standing in a New York City courtroom pleading not guilty to federal charges. I mean, wow. This move immediately raised these huge, critical questions about the future of Venezuela, especially its massive oil reserves, which, are the largest in the world. And that is what sent the first shockwaves through the global economy. So the first and most immediate shockwave hit right where it always does: oil, gold, and ultimately, your wallet. Suddenly, everyday investors were just trying to make sense of all the chaos. With Venezuela's massive oil supply suddenly a big question mark, shares of major oil companies just surged. You see SLB jumping 8.5%, Chevron was up over 6%, and ExxonMobil gained 3%. What's really interesting here is how fast the market placed its bets. It showed this immediate confidence that these big, established players were going to benefit most from the price volatility that was sure to come. It's a classic move, right? In times of turmoil, investors run for cover. Gold prices shot up to a one-week high, and silver climbed right along with it. People were just looking for assets that historically hold their value when the market gets stressed out. It's a textbook flight to security when the future feels this uncertain. But, amid all the chaos and the wild market swings, financial experts were offering a much calmer perspective. This quote from CNBC Select really reinforces some classic advice. The crucial takeaway from the pros was pretty clear. Don't let a short-term geopolitical crisis completely derail your long-term financial strategy. But the shockwaves didn't just stop with the oil markets. Not even close. The really aggressive posture we saw in Venezuela was suddenly echoed by this stunning diplomatic escalation way up in the Arctic, and it revealed a much, much broader strategic play. And this is where things get really wild. In a pretty stunning move, the White House confirmed it was seriously considering military options to acquire Greenland. The official reason given was national security, and they pointed to the increasing presence of Russian and Chinese ships in that strategically vital Arctic region. Well, Europe's reaction was, as you can imagine, swift and unified. Leaders fired back with this incredibly blunt statement, rejecting the U.S. position outright and making it crystal clear that Greenland was not for sale, and it was certainly not for seizure. And this just brilliantly illustrates how serious the situation was. Denmark's response wasn't just words. It was a nearly $14 billion commitment to rearm Greenland. This wasn't just diplomatic sparring anymore. This was a tangible military and financial reaction to what they saw as a very real threat. So, with geopolitical tensions flaring up from South America all the way to the North Atlantic, global markets started to adjust. They began accounting for this new reality of conflict and instability. In other words, they started pricing in fear. And nowhere was that more obvious than in the defense sector. I mean, we saw this immediate surge in Asian defense stocks early in the week. Kawasaki Heavy was up 6%, Korea Aerospace soared an incredible 11%, but then that optimism just vanished. Both stocks fell the very next day. Meanwhile, over in Europe, defense firms kept on rallying for a fourth straight day. It showed this clear split in investor confidence and really highlighted just how unpredictable this new global reality felt. And while world leaders were trading warnings and markets were going haywire, that same tension was boiling over right here at home. It all culminated in a tragic event and a major policy shakeup that just amplified this sense of domestic instability. In Minneapolis, on January 7th, the situation turned deadly. ICE agents fatally shot a woman in her car during what federal officials called a targeted operation. The incident immediately sparked outrage and, you guessed it, two completely different official stories. So, on one side, you had the Department of Homeland Security.
They claimed it was self-defense against what they called an act of domestic terrorism. But the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor of Minnesota, who said they'd seen video of the incident, called that a garbage narrative and straight-up bullshit, blaming the death on an agent recklessly using power.
And on that same chaotic day, the upheaval wasn't just on the streets, it also came directly from the White House. The president announced this sudden, massive shift in U.S. housing policy, declaring he was taking steps to ban large corporate investors from buying single-family homes. It just added this whole new, unpredictable economic element to an already totally volatile week. So, after a week of these unprecedented actions, market whiplash, military threats, and domestic tragedy, what are we supposed to take away from all this? What does it all really mean? The events of this single week touched everything, from global geopolitical strategy and the price of oil to your personal investment portfolio and public safety on American streets. It really forces us to confront a critical question. Was this just a perfect storm, a chaotic week that we'll eventually forget? Or was this the moment the new normal announced itself, a future where that line between stability and chaos is thinner than we ever imagined?